Please join me in welcoming Grant and Carly Burnham. Thank you so much. You got 50 minutes. And
Okay, yeah. Thank you. We're being transported in this moment to woolly woolly Waka Waka country in the beautiful North Burnett. We're about 500 kilometres northwest of Gubbi Gubbi country, where we're not the outback and we're not the coast. We're kind of in between, which I call the quintessential Aussie bush, with the ancient grandfather blue gums, the granite rolling hills, the wide pale sands of the Nogo River, and also moving up into the more elevated semi-evergreen vine thicket, dry rainforest. Our homeland, our heartland. We connect the heart of the people to the heart of the planet through food, through nature, and through human to human connection. How did we arrive at Bonnie Doone? In 1838, my ancestors, the Zillmans, had an opportunity to come to Australia. They were German, Prussian, and my seventh great grandfather, Johann Zillman, was a blacksmith and helped on a dairy farm. And he was also a Lutheran and a churchgoer. And he had an opportunity to come to Australia, to the Moreton region. It was before Brisbane was Brisbane. And he came with 5 other ministers, Lutheran ministers, and their wives, and some of them had children. In fact, in one last year I was telling this story, and afterwards in the audience, a colleague through our RCS network came up to me afterwards, who was such a great friend, Tom Wagner. He was actually on our deck at Bonnie Doone, and he came up and said, "Carly, you were telling my story. My ancestor was the Wagner that came with the Zillman to the Moreton region." So that was quite incredible. So Johann Zillman came with the ministers, and their plan was to Christianise the Aboriginals. Good Lord, I'm glad that didn't kind of work out. So for about a decade, the government funded a mission, and the missionaries worked on sharing their religion with the Indigenous people, and they actually became very well connected and well respected. And at the Convergence conference, when Maruchi Baramba was at the Convergence conference, she opened, I spoke to her afterwards, and the Zillman, the Wagner, the Epa, all of the names, she said there is a great respect and a great mutual connection still, and this is generations and generations. And she was an Indigenous elder who sadly passed away. So when the government stopped funding the mission and they realised, well, this is a bit of a futile exercise, they granted the 6 missionary leaders the opportunity to become Queensland's first free settlers. So these people selected a small plot of land and became Queensland's first farmers, selling their food, produce, fruit and vegetables, about 12 kilometres from Zillmere and Nunda, where the German mission was, into the city. And I feel relieved that there was a respectful connection and with the Indigenous culture, but I also feel some sense of responsibility of some healing to do as well. So in about 100 years ago, actually, on the 31st of July this year, a few generations down, my great-great-grandfather and two of his brothers came up into the North Burnett region. And Eric and Elizabeth Zillman took the train to Serratidus, and the last 60 kilometres to their farm that they'd selected was horse and cart. And they built a slab hut and they started their life on the banks of Splinter Creek where the callistemons grow. And my great-grandmother planted a beautiful bunyannut pine which still stands today. Around the early 1900s, Grant's family, the Burgesses, were incredible horse people and cattle people, and were farming around the Miriam Vale, Calliope sort of area. And the Burnhams and the Burgesses came together, and then in 1949, Grant's grandparents ventured a little west to Monto looking for a larger holding after sort of buying and selling various smaller holdings. And this is how we came to be at Bonnie Doone. We have two properties, Bonnie Doone and Burnham. And Burnham, in fact, was selected by my great-great-uncle in 1927. So we can proudly say that one of our properties has been in our family for 99 years, which is pretty cool. And there's a kind of a funny story that I'm really into our ancestry, and last year we went on a trip over. So I'm German, Irish, Scottish, English, Grant English, Scottish. And during the research in the ancestry, I realised that my great-great auntie Daisy Zillman, there was always this story in our family that Daisy was murdered by her fiancé. She was to be married, and the day before she went to town, it was down at Warwick. I don't know whether Randall Rosenthal homestead. And she went to town and got the mail, and in the mail she got her wedding dress and a box of chocolates, which was quite small, wrapped in brown paper, sat on the veranda, opened up and ate some chocolate and gave it to, she was a nurse and cared for an elderly lady who owned the property, and the elderly lady ate a chocolate too. And Daisy took a second chocolate before she went down the paddock to get the house cow in. And by the time she was walking back up to the house, she was screaming, "I've been poisoned, I've been poisoned," to come into the house to find the elderly lady had given herself a swig of white spirits to make herself vomit, and said to Daisy, "Have some white spirits and you'll be okay." But Daisy collapsed and died. It was 1912. And she was in her 30s to be married. And while I was doing the ancestry, I discovered that Grant's ancestor, Robert Burgess, was her fiancé. And so there is a whole, the box of chocolates are in the Queensland Museum. There's court notes, about 150 pages of the trial, which Robert Burgess was not found to be guilty. But my family, they don't forget, the Zillmans, they still... So could it be that Grant and I are, now in this lifetime, have come together to heal the wounds of the ancestral past? Who knows? Yesterday, there was a couple of times during the presentations talking about the pyramid and the hierarchy. And it got me thinking about, well, what's the symbol of how we do what we do? And it's circular. And it's taken a while to get to this. It was linear for a while, from the beginning to there, growth and success, but it's actually circular, where we deeply observe nature, the rhythm of the earth, and giving and receiving is a continual flow.
Nothing like bringing up a few skeletons from the closet to introduce us. It's a privilege to be the custodian of this land and steward it on behalf of our great-great-grandchildren. So that's something it's a mantra that I wake up to every morning. I've developed this feeling over my years, and especially on this regenerative journey that we're on. I don't feel ownership of the land, but I feel deep connection. I think we're just here for a small snippet of time, and we're grateful for our forebears, including the Aboriginals, for so many thousand years, and we're really only here to look after it and make it a better place for our great-great-grandchildren, I believe. So yeah, as Carly said, and Jake's flattering introduction, we run an organic operation across 20,000 acres over 3 properties, which and more recently have a pretty successful soil carbon project also. So on that 20,000 acre operation, we run between 2 and 3,500 LSUs, and who's done RCS, been a client of RCS over the years, or currently is, quite a few. Look what you've done, Terry. So eternally grateful to RCS, Terry and David and their team for the help that they've given us to change our lives, and so, like they have for so many others in agriculture and in this room. I feel honoured to be embraced in this room, full of wonderful people, but also slightly intimidated by the knowledge in the room. And I'm sure there's dozens of other stories here, equally or more exciting than our story. So, but thank you very much for having us today.
We're testing your spelling too.
Oh yeah.
We're putting the I in privilege. That's interesting, isn't it?
So it wasn't always the case. We weren't regenerative. We were fairly conservative land custodians for 18 years prior to the start of our organic journey, which started around 2010. I came home from college to my family business. This was before Bonnie Doone even was part of our operation. And we ran a seed stock operation, set stocked our gut feeling being the better of those two management strategies. But my father had a really he's got a connected great connection with the land, and his gut feeling is quite accurate too, and I'm forever grateful for the opportunities that our parents has given us. So we spent like anyone spent. We fought nature. We shoveled cottonseed. We fed out urea. We destroyed landscapes. We gave it an odd spell, but it was very reactive, not proactive. The way that we managed our landscapes. Fast forward to Carly entering our family, and we worked together in the business as a family operation for another 18 years, I guess, and then we bought had the opportunity to buy Bonnie Doone with the help of the backing of my family, and we separated from the family business in 2010, and that's when our regenerative journey started under pressure of finances and everything else, which a lot of people start their journey with RCS through that way. So when we started with RCS, it was all about survival first and foremost, and looking at what was really important. We had to look at our expenses. Obviously, like we're paying 50 cents in the dollar on interest with the debt that we had. That's not, and then we've got overheads and direct costs on top of that. It doesn't leave much for food and for educating our kids and so forth. So we were questioned a lot. We were helped to question our own importance, our own part in the landscape, part in the picture. So, you know, I distinctly remember David saying, "Don't you dare buy anything until you can show me that it runs a 50% return on capital." So that narrowed down our options quite a lot. So, but what we really were helped in identifying was we got a step back from being a beef producer. We were all about extraction, getting as many kilograms on our animals as possible, and then we stood back and realised it's about how much we can produce off per hectare, and then it was about how much grass we could actually grow per 100 mil of rainfall, and then it just became less and less important the animals on top of our landscape, and more important about what our ecology was doing for us and the services that were provided beneath our feet. So we went from beef producers to soil managers and root producers. Basically, was the main focus, and it's really simple. Our story is quite simple. When we get to this stage, it was just about producing many plants as possible for photosynthesizing with the variable amount of rainfall that we got. That's as simple as it is. I'm blown away by the knowledge of the speakers prior to us today and how much wonderful work they do, but we haven't gone to that level, except we really focus on what the landscape is telling us. So we did property development like dozens of other people in this room have done, under some careful guidance of what RCS has helped us with. So there's Bonnie Doone in 2010. There's around 20 something paddocks there, 26 paddocks, and there's 95 to 100. It's over 100 paddocks now. That photos, it's still changing. We've got plans. The plans go out to 150 paddocks. So that enables us to spell over 95% of our property at any one time. So, and control our rest periods and grazing pressures. So now we're starting to increase our stock densities. With mobs of 600 to 800 head in each mob. There's about 4 mobs moving around the property on their grazing plans. So that's been, and so there's 57 kilometres of additional fencing there. There's 45 extra troughs. There's another 60 kilometres of pipe or whatever it is. I can't read it very well there. But anyway, it's a lot. So we didn't skimp on water infrastructure. Fencing was very, very economical, and so we've done quite a bit. David, he didn't question us as much on the how much we spend on water infrastructure as he did on anything else. So there's you can justify pipeline. That's 90 mil pipe there. Most of our pipelines are 63 mil, but the main aim is to get up around that 3 litres per second through to every trough for demand. We use some grazing tech to communicate between our employees, our team, and data collection, there's a lot more of these coming on, a lot more options than mower grazing out there now, but that's who we started with and we're still with. And there's a photo of a fence which we're doing similar, getting similar impact on our pastures as Bryant was talking about this morning. So that's just a lot of you be quite familiar with electric fencing. That's a single hot wire at about ball height. That's for a bloke on a not too hot a day, just a reasonable day. And there's a different calibration for the women, obviously. But but that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is to open up the crowns of all of the plants and make them a lot more stimulated and open to photosynthesis and growing more feed. And then what that's doing under the ground, well, we're hearing over the last couple of days just how important that biology is under the ground by all of the other speakers. So, but by going through this journey, we've been able to reduce our inputs to almost nil. We were users of, we're in the tick and fly country, and we've applied chemicals for weeds and that over the years, but this has eliminated so much eliminated everything of artificial inputs like that. And I pick up a piece of soil now and look at it, and I look at that as this is what we're feeding our people. It's not the cattle that go on the truck. Our eaters are actually, they're being affected by everything we do here, right down to under our feet. And I shudder when I think about some of the chemicals that we were using. I remember when Acatak first hit the market, we went to a sponsored field day where the rep was up there saying how wonderful this is. You get this fluazeron, which goes through the skin, that gets stored in the fat of the animal and slowly released throughout the bloodstream for months afterwards, and inhibits the cycle of the tick. And I'm going, oh, this sounds a bit. But they said it's all out of their system in 42 days. It's only withholding period. So then, you're right to sell the product, and you're going to get this return on your capital. Like it's a $5 pour on, and you're going to make 30 or 40 bucks. And that's a pretty easy equation at the time. But I look back on that and I think, wow, what are we producing? What are we putting on our food for our eaters? But we don't do that anymore. It's such a wonderful transition to know that we can produce healthy food for our eaters. So of course, this natural progression led us into an opportunity that the timing was right, and Terry offered us to be part of a wonderful group of 5 producers, and along with Tom and Antoinette Archer, who are here also, to be the first to measure soil carbon at the depth and intensity that has, and we baselined our property in 2016, and we had our second measurement in 2021. We were able to bank 96,000 accus. So this is over and above of the increased productivity of what we've been able to achieve with our grazing improvements. We've lifted our stocking, the stocking capacity, our carrying capacity on Bonnie Doone by 800 to 1,000 LSUs, and that's quite conservative. We will reach 4,000 LSUs on an average year of rainfall with the increased productivity, and a lot of that's attributed to the carbon that we've been able to sequester and better water holding capacity. And so that's in that first 5-year period, you see the graph up the top there, that's our rainfall on Bonnie Doone. So as you can see, we had well below average rainfall for 3 of those 5 years between 2016 and 2021. down to around 10 inches of rain, or 250 mil, for a couple of those years, which everyone experienced. And we had other challenges such as pasture dieback, and there were some well-documented scientists out there spruiking about how it's only rainfall affected this soil carbon farming, and these results, while they were variable at the shallow, in the top part of the soils, we were able to sequester carbon deep down to that 4 feet or 1,200 mil throughout the whole property. So it's looking really good. At the moment, where as we speak, they're doing T2 sampling at the moment. So they gave me this is what
No, it cost us a bag of sausages.
Oh yeah, we did have to. Yeah, it wasn't free. I didn't say it was free. The Carbon Link and RCS don't do everything for free. But so that's a typical soil sample. So that's like a lot of the cheaper competitors who are doing sampling only do like shallow soil samples, and being able to draw down carbon to this lower is still only being found out. So that's why it's so wonderful to be part of this experiment, if you like. But it's also a profitable experiment too, and to give farmers the opportunity to have another level of income. Not that we ever went into it to make money out of it. It was to be part of scientific evidence, I guess, and research, to see what's possible. And so the future, it's really exciting to see that the resilience that we can build in our landscapes can transfer to the resilience in our businesses, and layering the income capabilities, and also growing better quality feed, and a great solution for climate change too. This is, as Graham said, this is the best spot to be drawing carbon down. It's a win-win for everyone.
And reducing emissions. That's 128,000 tonnes of CO2 equivalent. There's some calculation you do, but I'm not a details person. But the fact is, beef cattle production, honouring a natural ecological grazing system using cell grazing, pulse grazing, reduces emissions. It takes the CO2 out of the atmosphere into the soil, and we feel really proud to be a part of this solution. And yeah, Grant says, oh yeah, it was simple really. It really was partly simple. There were some simple solutions to a very complex spiritual awakening. So back in 2010, we started our education journey with RCS, but also with I did some other study and lots of reading, and started to really question who we were, our identity, our values, and how we wanted to be farmers, essentially, and what the legacy was. We didn't realise that at the time, but mature, grey hair, less hair, we're reflecting back in 2010. What was it? What was happening? And it wasn't a health crisis, maybe a little financial pressure, yes, but there was no existential crisis. It was an existential crisis, but there was no practical sort of crisis, scene crisis that we were having. We were free from the family business, and we had this independence, and we had the opportunity to be self-determined and make our own path ahead, and that was bloody frightening. And the earth, the stable earth under our feet, was like an earthquake as we started to realise it's our responsibility. We can't whinge and complain about, oh, Dad, this, Mum, that, the in-laws, the weather, the whatever. It was up to us. And so we had to dig deep. And we had 4 little children. And I had a existential crisis. And Grant gets busy building more fences, got a solution to this problem. and I start to really unravel. And through my reading, there were 3 books in 2010 that I remember had such an impact on my life. One was called Food Shock by Diane Luffman, who I think is a Queenslander, and it really was a shock. It was about how much glyphosate was going into our food as farmers, how much inputs and urea and fertilisers and chemicals and the commodity model rather than a food to consumer model. And that started to get me thinking about, gosh, we've got thousands of cattle, and we're turning our attention to nature. Climate change was really starting to awaken within both of us, and nature and our land was screaming out for something different. Another book that I read, and it was so exciting to meet my 2010 idol, Cindy O'Meara, was Changing Habits, Changing Lives in 2010. This is like a really full circle moment, because we don't know how we impact someone's life and change the trajectory of someone's ag business. And I didn't know that I would ever meet you, Cindy. So there you go. You impacted us greatly. So I started to think about nutrition and what we're putting into ourselves and our family. 4 little kids, fairly stretched. And then I realised we needed to shift from producing a commodity to producing nourishment and sharing nourishment with our consumers. And it's actually quite it's very inspiring. This area down here has always inspired me from when I was a teenager. We'd come on holidays, and at all the little road stalls we'd buy 6 eggs for breakfast. And where we are larger holdings and more dispersed population, and it's harder to have that direct to consumer connection. So we had a huge paradigm to kind of work with, and we decided 2013 became organic certified or started that journey actually of using no chemicals. And through the process of cell grazing, we could stop using inputs. It took some time to transition. I wanted to do it like that, and Grant is always a sensible one, that we need data, we need time, we need proof and evidence. I just have a gut feel. So we're a great combo, really, most of the time. So we committed to just give it a go. We sold 1 cow. Our kids' school teacher bought one. A friend from Gladstone, 200 k's away, bought one. Our accountant bought one. How lovely. So we sold 8 boxes because we wanted to do sort of sell the whole animal. So something happened for me, and I stopped eating meat for a period actually prior to this, because I realised what we were doing didn't align with me. The food I was buying from the grocery shop, one day took the kids to after school, whatever, and in the trolley, all the kids are little, okay. I walked down one aisle after reading all these books. Nothing's organic. Oh my God, oh shit, oh God. Up the next aisle, oh no. The kids are like, what about this, Mum? What about that, Mum? We always get Heinz baked beans. No. Walked out the door, and the kids are going, what are you doing? Put the trolley away. In the car, kids, driving home. We bought nothing, Mum. What are we going to eat? And I said, we are eating nothing until we can buy organic or grow it ourselves. Drove home, and then had to start thinking, okay, shit, there's not much in the cupboard, so we'll eat what we've got. So then I started to create solutions and find farmers and find organic food deliveries that come 100 kilometres away, that we still drive 100 k's to get our produce, that we don't grow ourselves. And I started to remember my grandmother. It was around this time that she passed away. Her name was Doone, and she was a farmer. She was a Zillman heritage. and Dawn, the sunrise. She really was the light in my life, and she taught me about the gift of nature. She wasn't one to sit down and do lectures and give great details. It transmuted from her being into mine, and we'd walk through the paddocks, collect fossils, milk the cows, drink from the milk bucket. She made her own soap from tallow. She made her own bread. We'd pick the peaches off the trees and stew them, scoop the cream off the cow milk and have that for dessert. It was such an incredible time of my life, and she'd passed away a few years before. And you know when something goes from your life and then you suddenly want it back, and you're so grateful, and you realise, oh, that was such a cherished gift. So we created a model of nose to tail. We wanted people to eat our beef and know that they just can't have a steak and sausages, and wanted to experience the oxtail that my grandmother made for us, and the shin, and often chickens' feet were floating around in the soup, and little heads floating around. It was a bit traumatising, but it tasted so good. It was hard to sort of reconcile. So we had to ultimately make a sort of culture shift, find the eaters that believed in what we believed in, that would buy 20-kilo box, 1/8 of a cow. So we found them. They were all friends and accountants and so forth to begin with. So from 2013 to now, we've consistently sold our beef to a 300-kilometre radius once a month, and we've reached the ceiling because our butcher has an abattoir in Monto, and he's at capacity because everyone from all around Central Queensland brings their animals to be processed as well. So he can't do any more for us. So we've got some innovation happening there. But the connections we've made, like Darren and Hannah, Grant just delivered on Thursday. They live at Tenham Sands, and Hannah's a GP and Darren's a respiratory specialist. 2 kids, 2 dogs, always get the pet bones. And they truly value the farmer. They value the food, the nutritious, organic, chemical-free food. And in fact, they're so generous. They've knitted me mittens. They've given the kids, when the kids did a delivery, made a special smoothie for them for the drive home. Grant also had another customer on Friday morning pay for his breakfast at the coffee shop. He delivered in Agnes the night before. And so we have experienced how much our customers love what we do and love to eat, and that gives us the hope to keep going. And our dream is to transition most of our beef, rather than to be exported and into the domestic market, to be locally or at least within a biome or a biosphere be consumed. The way we connect the people's heart with the heart of the planet is through food, but also through a bit of a fun cabin idea that we built for the kids and for me to go run away from the kids and Grant when things got too much. And it's called Bloodwood Cabin. And in 2021, I decided to list it on Airbnb because we couldn't do international travel, and it was that time where what was happening. And I'd noticed a lot of urban people coming up to Monto, which isn't really a touristy area. It does have a Canyon Gorge National Park, but it's not typically the Mullaney or the Sunshine Coast. So listed it with 60 kilometres from Monto. Really, it was a bit of a joke. Didn't think anyone would drive that far. Well, it's been booked solid pretty much since 2021, and most of our guests come from Gold Coast, Brisbane, Sunshine Coast. Some from Lennox Heads and Byron Bay, which that was amazing because we go there for a holiday. And also globally now. We had a family from Hong Kong come last year, and I asked, how did you find out? And he was an Australian. He's lived in Hong Kong for about 20 years, and he said it was in a brochure in Hong Kong. So it pops up in lots of different spots. Now, that's a loo with a view. Can you see yourself there? Our agroforestry enterprise provided, and Grant provided the timber for the building. So it's all grown naturally, made of ironbark and blue gum. So grown on the property, sawmilled, built by our builder friend and my brother, and using a lot of resalvaged iron and doors. So there are a couple of little projects that we built on to our beef business to try to get that loop, extend that loop, and it's provided a very rewarding experience. Now here's our 4 possums. Who are incredible. And it's really important to us as parents that we're providing, clever parenting, resourceful parenting to our kids. When we really think about it, we were traumatized kids ourselves from our upbringing, and Grant, in a typical rural male-dominant business, has a very fierce, fantastic mother, a leader. However, there was expectations, very masculine. There was for someone very sensitive and heart-centered, and it's so beautiful for you guys, Stuart and Jake and Randall, just really letting that emotion kind of seep up and connect is so inspiring for our future generations. So yes, a very sensitive, heart-centered little boy growing up in this, tough, get-to-work boy. I'll give you something to cry about. There's some wounds there. And then we both had a lot of love in our family, but I had a mother who still has schizophrenia, and she's had it since she was 17. And that provided a lot of instability and uncertainty. And I'm one of 5. I'm the oldest daughter, so I became the mother and the organiser and holding everything together. So we, when we were in our 20s coming together, not really, it's all lusty and lovey, and we don't really think about that, and oh, how wonderful. And then as we have our own children and we see the little mirrors of ourselves and the bits we love and the bits we don't love, and then we see, there's pressures and, in our relationship. So going deeper and taking responsibility for our own wounds to heal, and then also providing, enough certainty and containment for the kids that they feel safe, but not too much. I went to Gwingana. It was a health retreat down at the Gold Coast one year, and there was a psychotherapist. And after I was, having the spiritual awakening thing, and afterwards I just had a little chat, and I was like, I've got 4 kids, and I'm really worried about what happens to me and what I've put onto my kids. And she said, look, Carly, don't worry, a little bit of trauma is great because it creates resilience. And so, yeah, we do good, but we're not too perfect. And actually, Dr. Pran yesterday had the image of the Hindu god, and Shiva was there. And Shiva, I think he had a lot of wives, and one was goddess Kali. And at my spiritual awakening, studying philosophy and all that cool stuff, I was like, oh, goddess Kali, I identify with her. So she's often pictured, she's got the hair, she's got about 8 or 10 arms, a necklace around her neck with all these skulls. And Shiva is lying down here. She's the goddess of time and death and destruction, but it's sort of a loving, she's very protective, and it's loving and can bring change. And so she's there with her foot on Shiva's neck, and she's beheaded him, holding his head like this. Grant gets really scared when we play that game. but But sometimes with my children, yeah, Carly, the other Carly comes out, and you've done a great job when sort of, bringing up your kids. When Ruby, this one, number 3, she was about 15. Oh, Goddess Carly came out. And Ruby just let me blow my stack. And who knows what it wasn't about that. It was about whatever was happening inside me. And then a little while later, she said, "Mum, when you're ready, I'll give you time, but I'd just like to have a conversation about your behaviour just now." And I was like, it's difficult when the kid turns the gun on yourself. Yeah. Anyhow, 10 minutes. I could talk here all day, couldn't I? Something that we really instill in the kids is how privileged they are, how privileged we are, putting the I in privilege. And it's not what I say to them, it's not what you do with your privilege and wealth, and I don't mean wealth only financially. Wealth is lots of other resources too. Intellect, natural world available to us, so much. I say it's not what you do. It's not what your privilege and wealth is. It's what you do with it, and how you give back and transform, and to not feel unclean about having privilege and wealth, but to do good and do better in a really empowering way and not a saviour way. Is there anything else I want to say about our kids? We do have, it's incredible actually, they're finding their path, the letting go to let come. So Lily, our oldest, is working in ag tech, which is sort of a loop back to the industry. Knox, who's next there on the left, he's second year studying vet science, a real animal lover, very intuitive. He will just be able to psychically connect to the cow and know what to do with it. Ruby, yeah, she's quite the sassy. There was she came home from boarding school one year and said, "Mum, I've got an announcement and I'm going to tell Dad, but I just want to run it by you first." Oh my God, okay, what? Well, I've decided that I'm no longer mustering. I'm not doing any outside work. So every school holidays, all the kids on horses or whatever, doing whatever out in the paddock. And I was like, okay, all right, well, if you're not going to do that, then what are you going to do? How are you going to contribute? Because that's how we operate. And she said, well, I love cooking, so I'll be the chef. I'll be the chef every school holidays. So no kidding. She's at uni now, but would come home on the school holidays and she would just cook day, night, or for us all. And that. So what I love about our parenting is that we let the kids sort of try and discover who it is, who they are, how it feels, what they want to do and not do. Some things are just required and demanded of them, but you got to be proud of your kid for. She's the creative. She's studying fashion design and business. She's uber creative, but she owns the most cattle on the property. She does the gross margins on how profitable they are. She's, quite surprising, hey? And then we've got Quade. He's year 11 at boarding school, and he's really advanced. He's doing a PhD in rugby union. Yeah. And, he hates school, loves rugby. And he was our little one. He was the spiritual awakening child. Yeah. And so he is our lightning rod of our family. He's very sensitive, and he tells us what energy we're putting out there and what he shows us. But yeah, he's an incredible kid. how often do you get to stand up and just skite about your kids? I was like, this never happens. Thank you for listening. Yes, so we also have a small team who support us. How wonderful. My dream was that we could become financially abundant, resourceful, abundant, and have someone to do the bookkeeping, because I'm not a details person and I really don't love it. I love analysis and how we can sort of move things and shift things, the bigger picture. And so, yeah, we have 3 or 4 other team members that really support us, and we're super grateful, and that's how we can be here, and home is still ticking along. And it's not just about our family and our team and our Bonnie Doone. It's also about our community, and had a little bit of jealousy last night in the Kin Hall, because it's just beautiful, it's usable. And so in 2016, we started a non-for-profit, or a profit for purpose, a charity, and Grant and I donated a couple of $100,000 to the community so they could reclaim this asset. It's a 100-year-old, almost 100-year-old theatre that the lady sitting in the audience here, her grandfather actually had built, and he was a grazier in the area, a neighbouring property. And Catherine lives here at Yamundi, so it's been a beautiful coming together of stories and connection. So we believe in priming the pump of prosperity and giving to the community, and we receive not directly, but and probably still to receive, but it comes back to us, and it comes back in other ways. So the vision is to restore this. My grandmother, she was about 4 years old, and in my great-grandfather's diary, the 13th of August 1941, went with Uncle Ray, his brother Ray, and Betty and the girls to watch Alice in Wonderland at the Rex Pictures. And this was the theatre. And my ancestors, being early settlers, you know, they created connections and bonds with strangers to build community, and they built halls, and they built the fabric of Monto and the region. And rather than us complaining and whinging that the beautiful historic buildings are falling down, it's time to give and make better. So we were thinking about three key things that that we experienced along this journey of much change and transformation. And Grant said we opened our hearts, and I thought that was so beautiful, coming from Grant, a man. And it made me think about Brené Brown's saying. She says, in her book Braving the Wilderness, she says, strong back, soft front, and wild heart. And it's when we're leaning into change or difficult situations. And I think about the vulnerability as humans. We can often protect our hearts and shut down a bit and protect our opinions and beliefs and polarize other beliefs. And so I really love that. We opened our hearts. It links to what Gary, there he is. I love your glasses. So cool. What Gary said yesterday about the state of grace and making change, rather than being Goddess Kali and, ripping things to pieces, it's finding our state of grace. And I'm a funeral celebrant, and hopefully I'm not doing that today. And my imprint, I'm straight to the top of the class, Gary, is I grow roots out of my feet, deep, deep down into the earth. And the more wobbly I feel, and the more nervous, the more angry, sad, frustrated, I just keep growing those roots down deep, deep, deep until I feel stability up here. And I think making change from a place of stability is long lasting. So just to close, a very impressionable person in our lives that helped us return to nature as the core of everything that we do was my dad. And in 2018, he died. He had a complex heart condition, and he was driving one day up the paddock and with Grant. When I die, will you build my box? And Grant's like, oh God, what sort of question is this? Okay, what do you mean? He goes, my coffin. Will you build it? Yeah, okay. Not anytime soon though. And Dad says, see that tree there? That crow's ash, it's dead. I don't want to take a live tree, but that dead tree, that's what I want my coffin out of. And Grant tucked that away in the memories. So then when Dad was in palliative care and dying, Grant and the boys went home to cut the tree down, to start sawmilling it. And Grant would text me and say, hey, can you measure your dad up? And I was like, oh, okay, this is weird. Off to Bunnings. Got to take measure. Well-known nurses and doctors will... Okay. So this beautiful ceremony and preparation was happening. And when I was a celebrant for Dad's funeral. It was managed by our whole family. It was beautiful. My brother and I took him off to the mortuary, and then we brought him back and we dressed him, and Quade nailed the very last, hammered the very last nail into his coffin. And when I'm with people that are transitioning from their human experience or have transitioned into their soul journey, it's very humbling. And I think about as we grow and become successful and wealthier and more privileged, our humility must grow in at least, at the same rate or more. And I just have 30 more seconds. You got to hop up for this. Do you remember it? No. An excerpt from The Hieroglyphic Stairway by Drew Jellinger. It's 3:23 in the morning and I'm awake. My great-great-grandchildren won't let me sleep. My great-great-grandchildren ask me in dreams, what did you do when the planet plundered? What did you do as the earth was unravelling? Surely you did something when the animals, birds and reptiles began to die. Did you fill the streets with protest when democracy was stolen? What did you do when you knew?
I love men that hug.